Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jai Vishwabhad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Shri Srimad Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 23, Maharaj Prithu's Going Back Home, Text 4. Tatrapyadabhya niyama Vaikhanasa susammate Arabda Ugra Tapasi Yathasva Vijaye Pura Tatrapyadabhya Niyama Vaikanasa Susammate Arabda Ugra Tapasi Yathasva Vijaye Pura Tatrapyadabhya Niyama Vaikanasa Susammate Arabda Ugra Tapasi Yathasva Vijaye Pura Tatra, there. Api, also. Adabhya, severe. Niyamaha, austerities. Vaikanasa, rules and regulations of retired life. Susamate, perfectly recognized. Arabdaha, beginning. Ugra, severe. Tapasi, austerity. Ita, as much as. Swa Vijaye, in conquering the world. Buddha, formerly. Translation. After retiring from family life, Maharaj Prithu strictly followed the rules of retired life and underwent severe austerities in the forest. He engaged in these activities as seriously as he had formerly engaged in leading the government and conquering everyone. Purport. As it is necessary for one to become very active in family life, similarly, after retirement from family life, it is necessary to control the mind and senses. This is possible when one engages himself fully in the devotional service of the Lord. Actually, the whole purpose of the Vedic system, the Vedic social order, is to enable one to ultimately return home, back to Godhead. The Grihastha ashram is a sort of concession combining sense gratification with a regulative life. It is to enable one to easily retire in the middle of life and engage fully in austerities in order to transcend material sense gratification once and for all. Therefore, in the vanaprastha stage of life, tapasya or austerity is strongly recommended. Maharaj Prithu followed exactly all the rules of vanaprastha life, which is technically known as Vaikanasa ashram. The word Vaikanasa susamate is significant because in vanaprastha life, the regulative principles are also to be strictly followed. In other words, Maharaj Prithu was an ideal character in every sphere of life. Mahajana yena gatasaplantaha. One should follow in the footsteps of great personalities. Thus, by following the exemplary character of Maharaj Prithu, one can become perfect in all respects while living this life or while retiring from active life. Thus, after giving up his this body, one can become liberated and go back to Godhead. Okay. Om Gyanitvalandasya Guranjana Shalakaya Chakshulanmaditamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karidavachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yakribatamaham Vande Shri Gurundiritara Vancha Kubdirbishta Kribasinduvevacha Patitanam Pavadibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Okay, translation again. After retiring from family life, Maharaj Prithu strictly followed the regulations of retired life and underwent severe austerities in the forest. He engaged in these activities as seriously as he had formerly engaged in leading the government and conquering everyone. So sometimes within the Vedic literature, it's mentioned this idea of entering the house of bhakti. And you could say that there's certain qualifications for entering certain places. Like, for example, if you want to go to the local bars, there's a certain qualification. You have to be 21 years old. That's about it. Of course, they have bouncers, the guys who work outside the bar. They bounce people, tell them to get lost. If they're too wild or crazy or something. And there's certain qualifications to enter into the White House. I mean, even if you're not the President of the United States, you can't just go in there. There has to be certain qualifications you have to have, whatever those might be. There's certain qualifications to enter a country, right? You have to have visa, so many things. There's certain qualifications to enter the house of a prison house. You have to be a criminal, or working there, something like that. Huh? A relative of a criminal, yeah. So, certain qualifications you have to enter different houses. So, similarly, within the Vedic literature, sometimes it's said that, again, about entering the house of bhakti. So, it's not just that we could find, you could say, bhakti behind a certain, inside the walls of a particular building, per se, like this building. And it's been brought up many times that people, it's not just about physically, changing one's location. Just like within one devotee was bringing up to another devotee about living in Vrindavan or living in Mathura, which is said to be one of the 5 most potent forms of devotional service. And Gaur Govinda Swami told this devotee, oh yeah, Kamsa, he also lived in Vrindavan, right? Or lived in Mathura, sorry. Kamsa also lived in Mathura. And who was Kamsa? Anyone remember who Kamsa was? Of course you do, right? Kamsa was, a big demon trying to kill Krishna, but he was living in Mathura, a holy place. So the point was being brought up that just living there is not good enough. Or Prabhupada would say, interesting enough, there's a quote out there, I read it. Prabhupada said that Vrindavan is full of Mayavadis and personalists. And yeah, that's true. I mean, they build temples there, and are they really in Vrindavan? Or, people wonder why there's so many monkeys, right? There's so many monkeys in Vrindavan because people commit sinful activity. Prabhupada said you commit sinful activity in Vrindavan and you end up as a monkey there. jumping around Radhakund or whatever, wherever. So just living somewhere is not, we're talking in the spiritual sense, isn't good enough. So yeah, what are the qualifications for entering this house of bhakti? It means a particular type of consciousness. And the qualifications are just for, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, one of the first principles of knowledge, what is it? A dumb hitva, yeah. To give up humility, to have humility, or pridelessness. So that's one of the things that has to be left on the doorstep, you could say, or even cast far away from the doorstep before one enters the house of bhakti. One may enter, you could say, to some degree, or they're on the threshold, you could say, of the house of bhakti. But to really enter it, one has to leave that out, because it has nothing to do with the house of bhakti. And part of that manifestation of pride is, or lack of humility, is this idea of that people have of thinking that they know. That's a very big that's a very big aspect of pride, to think I know. Just like we say the atheistic class of people, they call us fools and rascals, practically speaking. They say you guys are a bunch of sentimentalists, you don't know what you're talking about. Right? God definitely doesn't exist, and all of you are just completely sentimental. You have no arguments for the existence of God, and on and on and on. Pretty much you're calling us fools and rascals, right? And we say the same about them. But one thing they're claiming, which we really don't agree with, or that the diehard materialist, or the materialist, what is it called? Dyed in wool? Yeah. Dyed in the wool materialist says, is that they know. They know what life's all about. Hey, these books that you're distributing, we definitely don't need them, because we know, right? We know what we're talking about. We know what we're doing here. So back off. That's a part of pride. So people think, okay, I know what love is. I know what love is, right? They may claim. I know what pleasure is, they claim. But we would say that's just a manifestation of pride that has to be given up before one enters the house of bhakti. That we have to give up this idea that I know what love is, I know what pleasure is. And all the other aspects that go with it. Pride. So this pride and so many other things, it acts as you could say, an anchor. And there's that story Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tells. He says that there's the boatman story, right? So there's in India, boat, and then there's a large family that gets on the boat. They're going to a wedding or whatever they're going. And then the boatman's there, and then at nighttime, he starts to row the boat. And then everybody goes to sleep, right? And then they wake up, and then they're in the same spot. And the man's must be a really foolish boatman. But anyways, he's sweating and he's working all night. And then they go, oh, we're in the same. Oh, I've been rowing all night. I can't believe it. And then, they tell him, well, hey, you fool, you didn't put the, right? You didn't pull the anchor up. So you're not going to get anywhere. So there's certain things that act as anchors within our spiritual life that is very difficult to make progress, to get where we're trying to go. So that's one of them. They act as anchors. But a devotee, a devotee who has entered the house of bhakti, or who's on the threshold of bhakti, they're really trying to give this up, or they really have given this up, that they admit, I don't know. I don't know, I do not know, and therefore I need a guru. Why else does someone need a guru? When someone goes to college, they can't enter in the classroom and say, "Hey, I know better than you," to the professor. And then okay, you say, "Well, why are you here?" "Well, hey, I want to go up and teach." They could tell the teacher, "Hey, step down. I'm going to teach the class." But it's understood that, okay, I'm the student, and I may know something, but I'm obviously here because I need to learn the subject, what you're teaching. Or else, what's the use of a teacher? If someone knows, then what's the use of a teacher? So within spiritual life, we accept that we need a guru. And a guru isn't just a one-time thing. It's like, all right, well, I've managed the basics of the philosophy, the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam and so many other things, books, right? My eyeballs have soaked up all the words in the books, and I know the basic principles, so that's about it. That's all I need. But a guru means it's a lifelong and even after lifelong process, in which the disciple always thinks that my guru knows better, and I just don't need a guru as a one-time occasion, like initiation or whatever, first or second. But this is a person who will always be my teacher. And therefore, a disciple, by definition, is humble, because they understand that a disciple means discipline. And who are they being disciplined by? Their spiritual master, spiritual masters, those in the entourage of the spiritual master, Krishna. They're being disciplined by them. And therefore, a devotee lives their life as it's Prithu Maharaj, as is being explained here. He lives strictly following the regulations of retired life, or whatever the life may be. It may be retired life, this life, that life, different stages of life. They act accordingly, according to principles. And for whether it's Prithu Maharaj or for anybody to do that, that requires humility. That, like I remember I mentioned this before, but I just come into my mind. But there was this bhakta here, and as a general principle, it's not good to keep things on the floor, because then you can't clean properly. Means you can, but the tendency is when something's on the floor, people sweep around it, or they don't move it and clean under it. So within the Brahmachari Handbook by Bhakti Swami, he goes through so many different principles. He discusses so many aspects of Brahmachari, and one of the things he discusses is cleanliness. And he brings that up, that if you want to sweep, if you want to then you should keep things off the floor. It's better. So I brought this up to this bhakta. He's a Brahmachari bhakta, and I said, I don't know why I said it. It was years ago, but I said, according to this book, we should keep things off the floor, and it's easier to clean. And then he very challenged, what book? So what book are you talking about? It's like, okay, back, and he didn't move his stuff. He kept his backpack on the floor. So okay, just trying to clean the floor, man. So that's the mood. What book, right? There's regulations within this book, but I'm not following this book. I have my own acharyas, as it's being stated here, right? Mahajana yena gata sapanta. We follow the footsteps of the acharyas. But people think, these aren't my teachers. I have my own teachers, right? Like they have in their house people have in their house a very nice I don't know what you call it, a shelf, a nice shelf with glass doors. And sometimes devotees have that, right? They have a nice shelf system with, they put deities on it, they put pictures of Krishna, and, right? They put their Bhagavatam set. So within people's houses, they don't have the Bhagavatam set and deities and this and that. They have their own acharyas there. You know what? They're different varieties of alcohol, right? Liquor. They got acharya Jack, Jack Daniels. They got acharya Jim, right? Jim Beam. They got all their acharyas up there. That's who they learn from. Yeah, imbibe the knowledge. Yeah. So they say, what book? But someone coming to Krishna consciousness, or someone who's accepted the principles of Krishna consciousness, say, I live by these books, specifically the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and so many other wonderful books. I live by the books. And so when they hear things like this, that Prithu Maharaj was undergoing severe austerities, following strictly the rules and regulations of retired life, they think, okay, this is normal. This is normal. Not that it's abnormal. So as it's being mentioned in the purport, he's leading the great examples that he was a grihastha and engaged in family life, and then he retired. So that's a very important principle to follow for devotees. That if devotees engage in family life, they don't have to, but if they do, they should retire from it. And it's being mentioned here earlier that he didn't retire by himself, he retired with his wife. So there is concession for that, provided it's a detached life. Means not everybody has to take sannyas. Means the men. Not all men have to take sannyas. Some men they don't take sannyas actually. They just vanaprastha, which generally means a wife's there too. Of course, nowadays there's so much divorce and all that. So it's a whole different ball game. But so many people are divorcing. We're surprised when somebody doesn't divorce. It's like, whoa, you haven't divorced? How? It's amazing, actually. It's like a big achievement. Yeah, you're surprised they're married. Yeah, it's a big achievement when someone doesn't divorce. I asked Rajeshwari the other day, how long have you been married to Suresh? She said, I've been married to Suresh for 30 years. I said, okay. Oh, big achievement. It's like, whatever, I'm not dissing that, but it's just normal for people to be married. Just like Suresh's parents, Devaki Nandan and Santosh Mataji. I think I was given a class here, Sunday feast, and somehow or other it came up, but I said, how long have you two been married? They said, we've been married for, I don't know what they said, like 60 years or something like that, but really. And then everybody was clapping, and then I was feeling inspired, so I just had to say it. I said, okay, so when are you going to take sannyas? So whether it's sannyas or whether it's vanaprastha, something like that has to happen. It should happen. Because it's entailing that one becomes more directly involved in Krishna consciousness and more serious about detachment and going back to Godhead and all that. And it says the grihastha ashram is a sort of concession combining sense gratification with regulative life. So again, one can be a brahmachari, and they don't have to be a grihastha. They could immediately go to vanaprastha or sannyas, or one could become a grihastha, then become a vanaprastha or sannyasi, something like that. But, I mean, Srila Prabhupada would make the point many times, and if people get mad at me, I mean, I didn't, again, Prabhupada made the point, so they could get mad at Prabhupada. I'm just repeating what Prabhupada said different occasions, but he would meet with brahmacharis and he would say, best if you could stay a brahmachari. That's the best. It's more simple, which entails, like Prabhupada would say, a brahmachari doesn't need much. You just, 6 foot, or how tall is Jamal? How tall is Jamal? He's 10 feet. No. How tall is Jamal? 6'4". Okay, so in this case, 6 feet, whatever, 7 feet. You need 6-7 feet worth of space to lay down at night. You need some prasad, you need some service, and then you're satisfied. You don't need much other than that. It's a very simple life. So he said in that way it's nice. Whereas if somebody enters Grihastha-ashram, it's not so simple. It's really not so simple. You need a lot more than that. And therefore, like for example, stri is referring to woman, and within the Bhagavatam, within the Sanskrit language, stri entails expansion, means expanding the field of sense gratification. So you don't just need a small little room in an ashram with a small space to sit down and take prasad or whatever. You need a house, and with a house you need a job, and you need a car, and you need money, and you need to pay insurance, and you need to do this, and you need to do that, and you have to do so many things. So that's just how it is. That expansion principle's there. And I was going to say something else about that. Does anybody know what I was going to say about that? Any mind readers? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Pumsastriyana Maitri Bhavamit. Yeah. Griha, Chaitra, Sutapta, Vitar. So all these different things come from that association. That's what I was going to say. That someone at the lounge was asking me, which is kind of a challenging question, or maybe difficult question, but what can I do? I mean, some people ask the question, I have to answer them. I can't just avoid the question. So she was asking me, a nice person, and she had her boyfriend there, and we're in the gift shop, they wanted to buy something, so I was explaining how in many cases, there's a difference between men and women. I was saying that. I know people may not like that, but that's what's in our scriptures. I mean, as Prabhupada said, we can't compromise the message for the sake of people. Like people, we can't be people pleasers, right? We're Krishna pleasers. So I was saying that. Like when a man's single, a lot of the time, of course not all the time, but I was saying as a general principle, when a man's single, he's very simple. He just, every day he'll eat the same thing. He'll eat an avocado, and he'll eat 2 avocados, and some boiled beets, and some brown rice, and he'll do that every day. Same thing every day, same thing. And but then. A woman comes in the picture and she says, hey, well, we can't just have that every day. I mean, what about this? What about that? And, different varieties. And then I said, what do you think about that? And then, they're both there. And she said, oh, you're absolutely true. That's absolutely right. She says, that's what he was doing. Every day he was eating, avocado and a few things. And then I started saying, hey, why don't we go to this restaurant? Or, which isn't, it's not, anyways, it's just nature. And then I went on to say that, a man, he's kind of simple. He's got a few, like, T-shirts and, 2 pairs of pants and, kind of like that. And then the woman comes and she says, hey, well, come on, you can't just have 2 pairs of pants. You can have more, just different varieties. Variety is the mother of enjoyment. And she said, oh, you're absolutely right, because that's exactly how he was. He had 2 pairs of, and he was agreeing, it's true. And she was, trying to dress him up a little more. Like I know some grihastas, like there's some grihasta in Dallas, and they divorced, unfortunately. But when they're married, I would notice, like, he would be matching with her, the outfit. She would be wearing a particular, blue sari or something with, white, patterns on it. And then he would be wearing a, white dhoti with blue stripes on it, and a blue kurta with white, like so they're matching, and the children were also matched. So then he would always joke with me. He said, "Yeah, I don't really dress myself. My wife, she practically picks everything out." And, So, whereas brahmacharis, like just you have the dhoti and the kurta match, you're in good shape, right? I don't know if this one matches. Yeah, I think it does. I think I have a matching set here, but lately I've become a little lax on that. So this idea of stri expansion, and yeah, that's there within Grihastha ashram. And again, Srila Prabhupada would say, okay, if you can, just stay a brahmachari, and if you can't, then okay, become a grihastha. It's not like it's the end of the world, or there's some you're sinful or something like that. And what I'm about to say now is recorded within Tamal Krishna Goswami's within his Servant of the Servant, a very, very beautiful book, actually. Him joining the movement and spreading Krishna consciousness throughout the world, Prabhupada and his association with Prabhupada. And he dedicated the book, he said, to my disciples, something like, hoping this will inspire them to dedicate their life for spreading Krishna consciousness. It's a very important book. So in that book, he started associating with some householders. And he started developing a desire within his heart that, hey, well, I'm a brahmachari, but, there's Yamuna here and whatever, Guru Das and Shamsun, different, householder couples. And, well, maybe I should just join them. They seem to be doing pretty good, and, they're preaching this and that, so, what's the problem? Why'd I have to be a brahmachari? And it went so far that he sent a letter to Prabhupada, and he requested Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, okay. And they made some arrangement. Madhuri, I think her name was, in England when he was there. And he went through it. He, changed his cloth, he got married to Madhuri and the whole thing, and then eventually he said it didn't change much. He was still preaching, they were preaching, and they were still living in small quarters. It was like a whole preaching movement going on. And of course it's going on now, but the earlier days, I'd say in some ways, were more intense. So eventually, as we know, he developed a desire to take sannyas. And then he with Prabhupada, he actually requested Prabhupada a few times. Prabhupada was against it because his wife. Imagine someone gets married and then 6 months later go and say, okay, I want to take sannyas now. The spiritual master is in a difficult situation. What about the woman? What is she going to think? So eventually Prabhupada says, okay. And Prabhupada says, dye your cloth and get the danda ready. And Tamal Krishna Goswami said, oh, I already did that. He said, okay, I'll give you sannyas tomorrow in Jaipur. So he did that, he gave him sannyas. And the wife, actually, she stayed true to her vows of being a widow. She put on white and, stayed. So that's, to her glory, because she didn't want that. So, anyways, but what I'm saying is that while he was writing about this, he quoted Prabhupada, because I don't I don't think it was from himself, but he said there's a huge percentage of risk for grihastas not going back to Godhead. Oh. And I think it was really huge, like 75% chance. Now, someone would say, oh, why would Prabhupada ever say that? That's terrible, you know? That means the whole population of ISKCON practically, huge percentage. They're all great. There's only a few brahmacharis if you really add them up throughout the world. Right? Yeah, compared to grihastas, there's a huge amount. So what does that mean? Does that mean that everybody's just, out of luck? 75% chance I won't go back to Godhead? That sounds terrible. What's the point? Maybe I should just give up now. Maybe I should just join the circus, right? Kali Yuga circus. Maybe at least I'll enjoy my senses and, I don't know, whatever. So you could say that could be encouraging for brahmacharis or sannyasis, right? Well, hey, there's a huge chance that I, may go back to Godhead. Which this statement is there to tell devotees the extreme nature of sex life and its different varieties, subtle or gross or whatever. That it's not those engaged in it. Ultimately, they don't go back to Godhead. Those two entangled in it don't go back to Godhead. So it's not meant to be a depressing thing, but if you look at it in a if we look at it in a positive way, okay, brahmacharis and sannyasis, if they're really brahmacharis and sannyasis, okay, fine. It's encouraging to them. But what about the grihastas? Well, the grihastas could see it from the sense that, I need to follow Prithu Maharaj. It's not that I be a grihasta my whole life. I take vanaprast. There's a difference. I take sannyas. There's a difference. Prabhupada says grihasta is 75%. But vanaprast and sannyas, there's a difference. And that one has a way huger chance of going back to Godhead. And this is the example that's set by all of our great acharyas. Dhruva Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, who are all householders. Prahlad Maharaj, so many Maharajas within the Bhagavatam, they're all householders. Like it says, our Mahajans, it's being pointed here. What is it? There's Vyasaki, Swayambhu, Narada, Shambhu. How many are there? There's 12, yes. There's 12, and out of those 12, there's only a few. I think most of them are householders. Most of them are householders. That means our acharya, our mahajans. But they set the example that vanaprast, sannyas, which means retirement from active life, which means more time engaged in direct hearing and chanting and preaching. So it's not a depressing thing, and I'm not just, some cold-hearted, maybe I am cold-hearted, but I'm not just some cold-hearted, brahmachari up here, doing some bashing or something. That's not the point at all, so I hope no one's going home with that, or going to the ashram with that. So this is the wonderful example. Prithu Maharaj saying vanaprast, and then he's going back to Godhead. So, okay, all right. So does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, our Bhakta always has questions.
I've heard before that, I think now, I don't know what to think, is that because of the designations of the Varna Ashram, if we follow each one perfectly, we have an equal chance of going back to Godhead, or are truly one of those designations more favorable, i.e. brahmachari life, or are we all equally able to get to the final destination?
Everyone's equally able, but I could look up, next time I give the talk, which is, anyways, I don't know if I want to get into this subject again during a class, but it is there within this book, Prabhupada's quote of a huge percentage. Yeah, I'm not making it up. There's like a, it's it's not as easy as people would like it to be. That's the thing. So, I mean, Prabhupada would criticize not only his householders, but he would criticize his sannyasis, his brahmacharis. He would, he's a guru. Guru means they could criticize. They could be critical towards their followers. So, like Prabhupada was sick in India. His body was sick, and he said, this is because 80% of my followers aren't following. My disciples aren't following. So, yeah, whatever ashram it is, if one's not following, I mean, it's a problem. And Prabhupada criticizing his householders, he said, they shouldn't think that they're, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur or advanced householders like that. And he was making the point that they're not. And I don't want to say he was saying that about all of them, but in a particular conversation, Prabhupada was making that point, at least about some of his householders. But again, he wasn't just criticizing them, he was criticizing, a lot of his disciples. And of course, I don't want to end on that negative note. When Prabhupada left the world, when he actually left the world, he wasn't leaving like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur out of disgust with his disciples. He said he was happy with his disciples. So, I guess what you could take from it is that one shouldn't automatically assume that, okay, well, I'm a brahmachari, so that means I'm in the door. Even then, you have to be a real brahmachari. It means living on the spiritual platform. And same with grihastha. Yeah, if one's like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, then okay, But one has to be following the principles. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, what did he do at the end of his life? He accepted Babaji, yeah. He didn't just continue, going to the court and, doing what he was doing as a magistrate. He accepted Babaji, which means he was chanting a lot of Hare Krishna. So that's the example that we have to follow if we want to be successful as whatever situation. But yeah, ultimately all of these things are just, you could say, stepping stones to us realizing our real nature as servants of Krishna. Like my guru would bring up the point about people shouldn't get married to be happy. That's a mistake. Said people should get married if they need to. People should get married so that they're more in a better situated position to practice Krishna consciousness, which will make them happy. In other words, if someone's living as a brahmachari and if they're miserable and not successful on so many levels as a brahmachari, then yeah, maybe that's not the ashram. Maybe they should be a grihastha, and in that way situate themselves better to practice Krishna consciousness so they could be happy. I mean, Prabhupada was really concerned with devotees being happy. That's the thing he really wanted. And he was actually really depressed when people weren't, you could say. Like, very, very surprising statement I heard recently. Anyways, my spiritual master was quoting it, that there was one disciple and he left Krishna consciousness. He was actually a servant of Prabhupada and he left. And then he met Prabhupada in Laguna Beach, I believe. And then in Laguna Beach, this disciple, old disciple, was saying that I'm glad I left the movement. And in essence, he was saying, I didn't really like being with you or, being with the disciple, the movement. So I'm glad I left. And then Prabhupada said a very interesting thing. He said, I'm glad you left too. He said, I was getting tired of seeing your morose face. So how we want to take that, how we appreciate what Prabhupada said, okay, that's another level. But anyways, that's what my spiritual master was bringing up. It was ye yatamam prapadyate, as they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. The spiritual master was like that too. So, of course, Prabhupada wanted him to, be a pure devotee and go back to Godhead and all that, but Prabhupada was just reciprocating with his. So, yes. Does anyone have any last question or comment?
Well, I was also going to say on that point that Tyler made the point that, Tyler, where again did you say you heard that from, or you read it from again? I think you heard from another devotee, yeah. That if one follows any of the 4 ashrams perfectly, then one has the equal chance of going back to Godhead. And one other way of saying that is that also the perfect grihasta doesn't stay a grihasta, though. So you could say that makes sense, perfect sense, because if you're perfect brahmachari, if you're perfect grihasta, if you're perfect vanaprastha, perfect anything, equal chance. But then if one is a perfect grihasta, that means they end their grihasta period, and then they start vanaprastha. So you can't be like a perfect grihasta when you're like 80 years old and you're like saving, like you're working hard and you're saving up money for like a trip to Cabo, and like you just like adopted 2 new pet cats, and like that's like, but I have like an equal chance. Well, some of those things you could say aren't really perfect, even if you're a 40-year-old grihasta, but still a perfect grihasta has an equal chance because they're on the particular stepping stone or stage, working toward the next stage of renunciation. So even though so you have to be a perfect grihasta, then you have an equal chance. But then a perfect grihasta, there's like a certain time frame for you to be a perfect grihasta, and then after that, then you move on to trying to be a perfect vanaprastha. Yes. And then, in the 3rd canto, Prabhupada says that to die as a grihasta is the lowest form of degradation. When he's talking about Vidura and Dhritarashtra, he puts it like that there's a place for that, and then everybody should then nobody should end their life in that stage, though. Of course, there's circumstances like you're 40-year-old and you're raising your kids, and you die unexpectedly. Obviously, there are exceptions, but one should always definitely plan not to have that be the end of their life.
Vanaprastha just retired from making money business, stuff like that. More hearing and chanting, more directly engaged in preaching activities like that. So, you're putting aside the material stuff to go for spiritual more. And that's Lord Chaitanya, right? Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga, Shiksharta Maikam Purusha Pranam. What is it? Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radadi. Kripam Buddha Tasam. Yasam Tamaham Papadya. That the followers of Lord Chaitanya, here we'll let Dravida Prabhu give the. And then we'll end with Dravida Prabhu's sweet
This is a verse by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He wrote it after he was converted on a palm leaf, and he sent it to Lord Chaitanya, who was staying in the Gambhira, which is this little room of Kashi Mishra's place. And Govinda wrote it on the outside because he knew that Lord Chaitanya would rip it up because it glorifies him as God, and he didn't like that. So what it means is Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Purusha Purana, the same ancient person, Krishna, has now appeared in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach devotional service to himself, characterized by detachment and knowledge, Vairagya and Vidya. He's an ocean of mercy, and I surrender unto him. It's quite a famous verse. All the devotees learned it from outside on the wall.